we go. Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy April 28th. Dawn Kelly is going to be our guest speaker today. It's a repeat performance. She was very well received the last time she was on the call, and today she's going to be talking about publicity tactics for small businesses, and she has applied those herself after a long career doing corporate communications in a large corporation. So before we do that, we'll go through our usual roster where people introduce themselves very briefly, not a long speech, just very briefly. And I'll start with Wendy. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Wendy Paff-Gennaro, Director of Development for Queens Centers for Progress. It's great to see everybody here. Roy, you threw me off again. I thought you were Maureen. But lovely to see everybody, and welcome back to our and welcome to our new people.
I'm Alex. I'm the moderator, and I work with Wendy, Sean, and Jyoti at QCP's Development Department. Steve Karp.
Morning, everybody. Stephen Karp, Variable Promotions. We are commercial printers, as well as distributors or suppliers of promotional items. Thank you.
Okay, and Robert.
Hi, good morning. How you doing? My name is Robert. I work in social services right now, actually. But I also I'm into social media. I'm also into real estate, and I'm also a geek. So it's multi.
Okay, thank you. And Margaret.
Yes, Margaret McPherson. I am the president of the board of directors of Queens Centers for Progress. And this sounded like a really interesting talk that we'll hear.
Thank you. Welcome. I almost called you and Margaret, not and Margaret. Okay. Rachel.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Kellner, and I am the co-owner of Eigner Chocolates. We are one of the oldest chocolate shops in New York City, and we make and retail delicious handcrafted confections. We help make our clients make, we help our clients build impressions and build relationships with their clients. And we look forward to helping you connect with your clients. Thank you.
Thank you. Got that elevator speech down. Galina.
Hi, I'm Galina Portnoy. I'm a CPA director at a large accounting company. So any tax-related questions you have, happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Jyoti?
Good morning, everyone. I'm the development assistant at QCP. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. Neil Levin.
Good morning, everybody. Neil Levin, Webline Media Group. We have been designing websites since 1995. I've worked on over 1,000 projects for small to publicly traded companies. Neil Levin, Webline Media Group.
Thank you. Sean Corona.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean. I'm the development associate at Queens Centers for Progress, and I work with Wendy, Jyoti, and Alex in the development department.
Thank you. Brian Sullivan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. Brian Sullivan with Sullivan Engineering. We handle the exterior restoration of buildings. You may have heard of Local Law 11. I am a guest of John Rafferty's, so thank you to John.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Mara.
Good morning, guys. Mara Ohanyan, Cruise Planners, full service travel agency. We're your land and cruise experts, and I represent American Express Travel. Go get your vaccinations and let's start traveling because the world is opening.
Thank you very much, Mara.
Even European Union says so.
I know. Roy Pelicano.
Roy Pelicano, Triangular Consulting. I, in addition to business strategy, I provide commercial funding options for small businesses. Last week, I spoke about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. They're going to be taking the applications noon on Monday. You can start building your online profile Friday of this week, and you should. And to give you an idea of the benefit, I'm working with a client. They got only $7,000 in their PPP loan, but they're going to be able to get over $100,000 through the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. So for food and beverage organizations, those of you who are B2B for your restaurants, get them my name and number, and you'll provide them with an extra value. Thank you.
I think Dawn will talk to you after this. Nancy Vargas.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Nancy Vargas, CEO of DH2 Chauffeur Transportation. What we do is provide safe and private ground transportation services. So if you book your travels with Mara, DH2 can take you safely to the airport. If you have an event, a wedding, or anything that has to do with mobilizing you or your guests from point A to point B, this is what we do at DH2. Thank you very much.
My biggest ally. Thanks, Nancy.
We just need a pilot now to complete the loop.
I know, right?
Jerry,
We'll find that at JFK, no worries.
Jerry Schwartz.
Yeah. Good morning, all. Jerry Schwartz, Jerry the Geek, for all your computer needs. I do computer repair for small businesses and homeowners throughout Long Island and Queens, either in person or virtually.
Yeah. Mr. Ridgers.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Martin Ridgers, out of this world insurance broker, working with personal or commercial insurance, as well as specialty lines of business, licensed in multiple states, and have connections to do business around the world as well. So Martin Ridgers, NKR Specialty. So grab your future.
Thank you, Tony Foy.
Good morning. I'm Tony Foy. I work for LaGuardia Community College, actually specifically for LPAC, which is LaGuardia Performing Arts Center. We have two beautiful theaters that we run, and I am the Education and Community Outreach Coordinator.
Okay, and Joe DiStefano, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Alex. Good morning, Wendy. Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe DiStefano. I do a lot of work around food in Queens. So that includes consulting with restaurants, writing about food, food tours, brand development, good stuff like that. You can find out more about what I do at joedistefano.nyc, and I'll drop that link in the chat. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Diaz, welcome back.
Good morning, everyone. Robert Diaz, financial advisor, Edward Jones, in practice for over 20 years, a CFP certificate, working with individuals and families, helping plan out their financial futures.
Thank you. Let's see, Tom Farrell.
Thanks, Alex. Good morning, folks. I'm having a little trouble with my camera, so please excuse the darkness. I am a business law attorney. I specialize in contracts, regulatory matters, and employment issues. I'm the principal of TMF Law Offices with headquarters in Fresh Meadows, covering Brooklyn, Queens, and most of Long Island.
Thank you very much. And Melinda Murray, welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Melinda Murray Nyack. I am the founder and president of the Dominic Murray Foundation. We work to prevent sudden cardiac arrest and death in the young. We provide free heart screenings for youth, CPR AED training for all. We place AEDs in the community, and our goal is to prevent SCA and death in youth by the year 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I skipped Ben Horowitz.
Yes, hi. That's right. I was late to the party. Good morning, everybody. Benjamin Horowitz. I'm the CEO of BSB Consultants. I specialize in group health insurance for organizations that range from 2 employees to a couple thousand. Also wanted to give a quick shout out to Mr. Martin Ridgers over there, as he is a fantastic gentleman, and we've already been doing some business together. So thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, and that brings up the subject of reaching out to one another. Again, I emphasize that, this is a group where we help you connect and have your one-on-ones and can do business together. So anyway, we thank you for joining us today. Now, Dawn, I'm going to spotlight Dawn Kelly, and there she is. Welcome back, Dawn. Dawn today is going to be talking about, from a very expert standpoint, the subject of publicity, public relations, specifically as it relates to small businesses. She can talk about her experiences with her own small business, and take it away, Dawn.
Thank you very much, Alex, for inviting me back. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to share some of the learnings that I have had over my 35-year career. I just wanted to say hi to Joe and hi to Tom. Those are friends of mine. And I just wanted to say that publicly. Additionally, I wanted to say that many of the lanes or industries that you guys are in, printing, travel, chauffeur transportation, group health insurance, financial services. All of those areas are areas where you can insert yourself into the conversations, the media conversations that journalists are having every single day on every single platform, whether it be newspapers, radio, television, cable television, or social media. And then there's so many other like product placement, advertising. And so there's so many ways. So what I did last night, I actually wrote some things down. So if it looks like I'm looking down, is because I wanted to make sure I don't leave anything out as I talk to you about why public relations or earned media is important to a small business. So the art of garnering positive mention of your company, your product or your service in newspapers, magazines, newsletters, blogs, and even on websites and journals where that are read by your audience, your lane, your people, if you will. Media coverage can come in the form of a feature story or a profile, a news brief, a calendar announcement, even a quote in an industry related story. So the story may not come out and it's all about your company. You may have a top line quote in a very important story, and that is considered news media as well and coverage as well. So PR, or successfully generating media coverage for your business, helps your brand to be viewed as credible. I don't know if many of you know, but advertising is not seen by regular, man on the street or woman on the street as credible. They know that companies and brands are paying for those ads. And so you are trying to, make sure that they believe a certain view about you. But when people see newspaper articles or news stories on television, they actually believe them to be true and much more credible. So it's important for all of you to consider either engaging with a PR person or using some of these tips and strategies that I'm going to share with you today in order to get in front of journalists. And so done well, generating favorable media coverage reconvinces your captive audience. So all of you already have customers that come to you, the ones that have been with you forever. So if they read news stories about you in the newspaper or see you on the news, on the television screen, or hear, WABC 1010 Wins talking about you on the radio, that reconvinces them that you are a worthy brand, you are a worthy product, you are a worthy service, and they will want to do continue business with you. In addition to that, in addition to that, it actually interests other people to come visit your brand. So here's a 5-step plan for small businesses. Number 1, you need to listen. What I'm going to recommend to you guys is the same thing that I did for the Nourish Spot, okay? First thing, make a list of 10 journalists or bloggers that cover your industry or town, and put their names into a Google alert and their blogs into Google Reader. Become accustomed to what they write, angles they use. When you read stories, when you watch the news, when you listen to the radio, you can always kind of tell what kind of angle or what kind of leaning the journalist or the media outlet is actually pushing towards. And so that's important for you to realize and understand when you are reaching out to a journalist to promote your brand, your service, your new hire or something like that. Second, network. Make comments on these key journalist blog posts. Send them links publicly through Twitter. I don't know how many of you are on social media, but I would definitely recommend, if you want to use it for media impressions and generating earned media, please join Twitter as soon as possible. You can engage them in online industry chats and forums. So I would tell you, I get on a lot of these types of Zooms and Google Meets, and a lot of times there are journalists on them. I make sure to interact with them in the chat so that afterwards I can reach out to them on LinkedIn. I can link in with them there, okay? We can start the building and cultivation of a relationship, because please, make no mistake, interacting with a journalist is just like interacting with a friend. You have to establish some sort of human connection first. It could be we're both dads. It could be we both graduated from the same college. We went to the same high school. We got kids. Find some mutual commonality with journalists, because as you work with them and as you build a bond with them, they will you will become top of mind for them, because you're not just using them for a service. They actually think that you're vested in them winning, because when they print excellent stories, they can win Peabody Awards and all type of different awards for their work. And you win too, because your brand gets coverage, it gets ink, it gets time on radios and television. Okay, network with them in a way that demonstrates your expertise with the subject and how you became and how you can become a resource for their story and stay top of mind. Excuse me 1 second. One of my staff members is here. Sebastian, can you get the door, please? Sorry, commerce has to keep going. Okay, next thing is you have to come up with a pitch. So one thing I noticed for about most of you, you had great elevator pitches about your business, right? And those things are very, very important to journalists. You know, their time, just like ours as entrepreneurs, is short. And so it's important for you to be very pithy about and succinct about what it is you're calling them about. And I would tell you this, if you know, you're going to listen to a little bit more from me, but what I'm going to say is most important. You have to know inherently why you are calling the journalist and how what you want to tell the journalist is going to positively impact the lives of the people that are going to read, watch, view, engage with that story, that news show, that segment. You have to have the end user's best interest in mind. So I'm going to say for the gentleman in financial services, okay, when you call a journalist, it's not about the new product. It's not about the new insurance policy. It's how those investment products are going to positively impact my life or you know your next door neighbor's life. Okay, what are they going to do with that product and how that product is going to help society in general? Same thing with the woman is talking about travel. Okay. You can insert yourself in a lot of stories right now because travel is on the horizon. I mean, it's happening already, but for those of us that are about to be finished with our vaccinations, it's going to grow, right? And so you can start inserting yourself in conversations now to talk about how countries are opening up to Americans, what Americans need, you know, what's the hot spot to go to right now after COVID, you know, what places to stay away from. So you have to look for different ways where you can insert yourself into the news angles of the day. Okay. Next thing, news releases. Now, I'm not big on news releases, but I would tell you that it's good to have. They are a tool to use. And so a news release is really just maybe 2 pages of language, you know, that articulates who you are, the name of your company, a contact, a great headline, because the headline in the first 2 sentences of that news release has to catch the attention of the journalist, or they're going to throw it away. I'm going to tell you that honestly, because I'm also a member of a number of journalist organizations. So let me back up to one more thing. If you can join any types of organizations where journalists gather, so the Society for Professional Journalists or the National Association of Black Journalists, there are a bunch of organizations out here where journalists gather. Become a member, figure out how you can become a donor or something, because if you can engage with them in this type of manner, when it's not you needing something from them, that's a way for you to be able to build a relationship with them, a way for them to get to know you and your integrity. And then when they are looking for a story, they'll say, oh yeah, I remember Alex, he works at that program. Let me call him and ask him for a quote about this particular issue, okay? When you get press coverage, post it. So I'm really anal about making sure that our coverage is re-merchandised. So it's okay for it to be in the Wall Street Journal. It's okay for it to be in the Daily News. It's okay for it to be in the Queens Chronicle. But what if you don't see it? Okay. And I have to make sure that many eyes see that. So it's important for you to re-merchandise coverage. And so I tweet out the headlines. I post them on Facebook. I post them on Instagram. I'm even on Tumblr sometimes. So I post the stuff on Tumblr. Anywhere, LinkedIn as well. If you don't have a LinkedIn page for your business, I strongly encourage you to also establish a LinkedIn page for your business, in addition to your personal page. The Nourish Spot has both, and I try to post coverage, media coverage on both pages. If I post it on the Nourish Spot page, I try to tweak the language so it seems like it's coming from the business. If I put it on my personal page, I tweak the language so it's first person, okay? So you cannot just make one post and put it on LinkedIn and put it on Twitter and put it on Facebook. You have to kind of modify and massage the language a little bit based on the platform that you're deciding to use. All right. The other thing, keep tabs on what's being said by leaders in your industry, okay? Because you need to know what your competitors are doing. You need to know what the leaders of your competitors are talking about. And maybe not even just your competitors, people that are trendsetters in your industry. You should have an idea of what they're talking about, so that when you go to insert yourself into conversations with journalists, you can actually say, oh, I read this article and such, I'm going to say for me, the head of Jamba Juice was saying that the trend is, right? And so that will pique the interest of the journalists, that you are, you are keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your industry. And so that also makes you valuable to them, and they will want to come back to you again and again as a resource for commentary. Okay. Next thing. Oh, I already told you about this. Tap the journalists through social media, through their publications, online blogs. So, you might get the Times or the Wall Street Journal in your hand, but also online on the internet, there's a lot of online blogs by the same journalists, and you can interact with them through there. So I highly encourage you all to do that. Make commentary under their pages. Sometimes people say you seem like a stalker, but so what? Your interest is to make sure that they know who you are, and that you have experience, expertise, and perspective on the issue in which they are covering. And I know I told you to start with 10 key journalists, but as you get the hang of this, I want you to expand continually expand your key industry and local bloggers to your media list. And you want to make sure you're going to high profile or top tier media, which is like the Wall Street Journals and the Forbes and Fortunes of the world, to the lower tier media, which is, your community blogs, your community papers, like the Queens Chronicle and some of the other community papers that we have here in Queens, across Queens. Next thing, you can go direct. So I don't know how many of you know that there is a resource, a free resource called Help a Reporter Out. It really goes by the acronym HARO, okay? And I would tell you that I use it, all right? It takes a lot of time, and most of what I'm telling you is tedious. So that's, as entrepreneurs, we work around the clock, and a lot of this stuff I do at night after I'm not at the store anymore. But use HARO, because in that particular instance, you don't have to pitch the journalist so heavily. The journalists actually send out emails about what they're looking for, okay? And if you are just remotely tied to what they're looking for, then you have the opportunity then to send them an email to say, I saw your HARO query and this is how I fit in, and you should call me. And I would tell you, more often than that, they do call you, and it does end up in you getting earned media for your brand or for your industry. Another resource like that is called Pitch Engine, but I would tell you a lot of times their stuff is based in the UK, and so it's not necessarily usable unless you are a global company and doing business in the UK. Then I would say use them as well. But HARO is a wonderful resource, and I definitely encourage all of you to check it out. Okay, I want to just tell you real quick what makes a good news story, okay? So I told you first, and this is really the most important. The journalist told me this, and it works. It works. Concentrate on the end user. I know you want to blow your horn about how great and wonderful you are and how your brand is, but the journalists don't care. Okay, what they care about is the person at the end of the road that's going to read this article, watch this television show, listen to this radio segment, and how they are going to benefit from your resource, from what you're telling the journalists. Okay, so that's most important, but it needs to be real news. If you're first, and it's kind of hard, we're in 2021. It's kind of hard to be first to the marketplace. But if you are first to the marketplace with whatever you're doing, that's a credible story. If you are unique, same thing like first. Not too many things unique, but if you made a new widget to make an old widget not workable anymore, you disrupted something, then yes, they would be interested in that. You can offer local analysis on national stories. So Joe, I see you doing that. When they talk about those big trend stories about food, you can actually bring journalists into what's happening in Queens because you have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in Queens. So I think that that's really important. The other thing is you capitalize on your ties to a trend. So for me, there's a trend right now to plant-based eating, right? So I'm calling any reporter. I'm interacting with any reporter on Twitter that is talking about plant-based eating, and I mean I'm just being a nudge. Oh, we provide options for plant-based eating at the Nourish Spot. Oh, you should come check us out at the Nourish Spot. It doesn't have to be anything like you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You have to be communicative. You have to be down to earth. That's what journalists are looking for. You can also tell people stories. So tell stories about your staff, about awards, about board appointments. Maybe your firm has done some extraordinary charitable contribution, okay? Or you've established some kind of tuition reimbursement program or a pet program, I don't know, but something that's different and odd, right? Reporters would be interested in that. So you need to think about those things as well. Another thing, maybe you solved a common problem, okay? So for me, I'm solving a problem in my hood because we didn't have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. We don't have a lot of grocery stores here, and a lot of stuff wasn't affordable. And so now I brought that to my community, and so I can talk about that with journalists all the time. And then let's see. Oh, and then this is really a good one. Reporters always like people that have a contrary opinion, right? So you know how they say sex sells? Well, I would tell you being contrarian sells too, okay? So if you can call a journalist and say, you know, I thought that was a great story. And, you know, I thought that such and such perspective on this issue was okay. Let me tell you why I believe this should happen. So those things are important to journalists as well. For your PR toolbox, real quick, you need to have a pitch letter. And the pitch letter is just like your elevator speech. It's who you are, why you are in business, and why your business is necessary to the millions of people out there that could potentially avail themselves of your product, goods, or services, okay? And also in your pitch, you know, you should emphasize the specific aspects of your story that is most appropriate for that particular media outlet. So I'm going to just again say to you, it's really important that you study, right? You study the media outlets and the journalists that you want to go in front of. I'm telling you, I do that. I read stories of journalists. I make sure that I have a good handle on what motivates them. You know, why do they write these stories? Because if you read 4 or 5 stories of one journalist, you can get a handle of, you know, why they do what they do. And so when you pitch them, you should always have that in mind. And also in your PR toolkit, you should have a news release. You should have a backgrounder. That's to tell the minutia about your business. You know, when it was established, why, where it was established. You know, is it an S corp? Is it an LLC? You know, those kind of minutia details. You could put that in a backgrounder. And then a publicity kit. That's pretty much just a folder with these news releases in it, some pictures of your leaders, your founders, maybe a case study or two. And you have that on hand because sometimes journalists will say, oh, can you send me your press kit? And I would tell you nowadays, they want an electronic press kit. So you don't need to make the folder. You just need to have a folder that in your computer that has these things in them that you can easily ship off to a journalist. Okay, media interviews. I'm trying to put it all in real quick. Try to get it all in. So media interviews. All right. So now you pitch the journalist calls, they want to talk to you. They want to interview you and share your perspective with the world at large. So one of the things that I would tell you that's very important, and it's either if you're doing it or you have an assistant that's doing it for you, okay? When a journalist calls, you want to ask, and you have the right to ask, what's the nature of your story? Who's the audience for your story? When is the story expected to run? Who else are you speaking with? Now, they don't have to tell you that, but it's okay for you to ask, okay? And then I always, when I worked in corporate America and worked as director of public relations for York College, I always asked journalists, could I review the quotes before they were published? Now, they don't always allow you to do that, but I would tell you the top tier ones do, because they don't want anybody calling their editors telling them that they were misquoted or anything like that. Now, you don't necessarily get to wholesale change the quote, but at least you'll have an idea of how you're going to be showing up in a news story, okay? So that's the first thing. Never wing it. Because you're going to get all this information, you know, write down some bullet points, right? And study them, practice them. I would tell you, I used to tell all my subject matter experts, that's what I would call all of you. I would tell all of them to practice in the mirror. And then I would tell you that I would be the worst journalist with them to make them practice with me, because you don't want to be at the end of a horrible interview, okay? Because what the story turns out to be is something that you want to run from and you don't want anybody else to see. So practice makes perfect. Again, it's important to break the ice with the journalist, and that's the way you establish a little personal ground and human connection. It's important. It's really, really important. This is something that I'm going to go slow because I want you guys to maybe write some of these down, but learn the art of redirecting the questions. So sometimes journalists are going to ask you questions that you don't want to answer, right? And a lot of times they're not even going to ask you the questions that you want them to ask so that you can get your message out. So you have to learn the art of redirecting. So I'm going to give you a couple of statements that you should keep in your arsenal so that you can always turn the discussion back to what you want to say. And I want to say one more thing. I used to know a little story. There was, I think it was George Washington or somebody was standing at a lectern, and there was a bunch of media people out in the front. And he said to them, does anybody have questions for my answers? Because let me tell you something, this is your opportunity to tell your story. I know this is going to sound anti-ethical, but it doesn't matter what the journalists ask you. Your job when you get in front of a journalist is to make sure that your message gets across. And so that's why redirecting is so important. So here's a couple of statements you can put in your arsenal to use. What's important to consider in this case, though, let me make that more relevant to your audiences. What we can take from that point is, and that's a great example, but I think you'd also be interested in knowing. So those statements will definitely help you turn any question around so that you can get your messages out. Because I'm gonna tell you, the moral of the story, the reason why you're talking to journalists is not to help them tell the story that they want, it's to help get your message out in the story that they want, okay? One last thing. Most journalists finish their interviews with an open question, pretty much all of them. They say, is there anything else you'd like our readers or our listeners or our viewers to know about? So what I'm going to urge all of you to do is always have a comment that's very powerful. So you should write that question down today, and you should come up with an answer that you will always give journalists, because they'll always ask you that question. So here's the action steps. This is, I'm coming to a close right now, and then we can answer any questions, Alex, that the group has. Here's the action steps again, really quick. 1, target your key media sources. All right. So again, you're going to start out with 10 key journalists or bloggers that are of interest to you and your service industry or brand. Okay. You're going to create 3 or 4 central media themes for the year. So, you know, for me, one is food insecurity. Another is plant-based medicine and plant-based eating. Another one for me actually is hiring and mentoring, because here at the Nourish Spot, we mentor young people to work in culinary arts. So let me say this. Don't be one trick pony. It doesn't have to be just about financial services. It can be like you have to make almost like a satellite system. So that's the crux of it. But what are the themes around it that you can speak to as well, right? And so that's why I tell you, for us, we could talk about food, we could talk about mentoring, we could talk about community partnerships. So those are stories in which I would insert myself, okay? As well as for me personally, I could talk to journalists about overcoming adversity, because my job was eliminated. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I started a business. And so that's how I can insert myself into stories about establishing a small business, about what do you do when you lose your job, you know, things of that nature. So you have to be a little like think broadly when you're thinking about your media themes. Okay. Also create a PR calendar and assign a theme. This is to make it easier for you, because we all have so many things to do. So create a PR calendar and decide what are the things you want to do, maybe quarterly. I mean, I wouldn't tell anybody to do that monthly. So I would say definitely quarterly. What would you want to do quarterly, right? And get in front of journalists every quarter with whatever you put on your PR calendar. Keep your pitches. So once you have those themes for your businesses, I would say write a pitch letter for each one, and you can modify them and massage them based on the media outlet that you are actually approaching. Also, target your core media list once a month. Interact with them. You know, go on LinkedIn, go on Twitter. You know, even if you're just saying great story, you know, but you need to cultivate the relationship. It can't be a one-off, you know. So I would say, again, quarterly works. You know, maybe every 2 or 3 months, you could reach out to reporters and just say hi. You know, how you doing? I read the story that you wrote about blah blah blah, and it really impacted me. Let me tell you how I used it, or something like that. Okay. And then track your media coverage in local trade press, so that again you can share it with your audiences, all of them. Okay. And then thank journalists as well. And then one more thing that I want to tell you about public relations. It's not just about the usual stuff, the social media and the traditional media, right? It's also about entertainment and product placement, right? There are so many opportunities for your different brands to show up in you know, commercials, advertising. So another part of public relations is interacting with groups. You know, make sure that you are becoming members of groups that are like-minded. So for us, we're a member of the American Minority, the Airport Minority Association. We're a member of the New York Women in Culinary Alliance. So join groups, because what happens sometimes in groups is a media professional will contact them, and the group will then say, oh, we have a couple of members that could speak to that issue. And so then the group will contact you and tap you for the opportunity. So with that, I'm gonna be quiet, and Alex, you can throw all the questions to me, and I'll see if I can answer them. But thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was
Okay. Questions? Go ahead, Wendy.
I've never taken so many notes in one of our meetings, but I've got 3 pages, Dawn.
Yeah!
Awesome. Nancy, you too, right? Look. But what amazing information, and thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you here. So one of the things that I always notice that, and I've always kind of like felt this way, is do we write our own stories? A lot of times, especially with the local news outlets, giving them a little bit of information isn't enough. And I find that if I actually write the story, it usually goes right in kind of verbatim with a little bit of adjusting. So what are your recommendations about that?
So yes, I would tell you that the community newspapers like Queens Chronicle and Bayside Times, Jamaica Times, they are more apt than a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal or, a Essence magazine. They are more apt to give you a byline. That's when your name is above the story. They're more apt to give you a byline than any other type of news media outlet. So yes, I would recommend that all the time. It's the same thing. Like when you're writing your news release, I would tell you, you write it as a story. You tell them the who, the what, the why, the how. Okay. You have to make sure that that's in your news release. And I'm sorry I didn't mention that earlier. They need to know and the when. Okay. That's important. And one other thing that I wanted to tell you, all of you, is there such a thing called a media alert? A lot of people don't use them, but they are really, really important and they help. And it alleviates sometimes you having to send out a news release. If you just alert the media that you are having this event, that you are doing this service, they will come, they will dispatch journalists to come see and take pictures or interview you. And so let me give you all a resource. It's called the AP Daybook. And you all, when you write, somebody's at the door, when you write news releases, media alerts, anybody in America can send them to the AP Daybook. And what that is a kind of calendar, if you will, that only journalists and their editors receive, right? And they actually go through the day and see what's going on. And so that's why journalists show up different places. So I wanted to give you that as well. But yes, you're on the right track. Keep writing your news releases as though they were stories, and you'll see way more pickup in the local newspapers.
Yeah, they haven't put they put their name on it, but they run it.
But sometimes you gotta just call. You call them. After they've done that like 2 or 3 or 4 times, you call them and say, it'd be nice if you guys let me have my byline. And most times they will. I've had a byline more than once.
Good to know. Thank you. That's awesome.
Don, I just want to make a comment. It's not a question. First of all, wonderful presentation, lots of information. And of course, this is being recorded so people can refer to it. But what you've talked about reminds me a great deal of the sales process.
Yes.
Get to know your customer. Think about what's in the best interest of the customers. Form that relationship, because people like to do business with people they like, etc. It's very closely allied with building a customer base. So that was just my comment, not a question. If there are other people out there who have questions.
Yes.
Robert, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Dawn, my question for you: do you have food events in your store? And if you do you use particular themes? I can't hear.
Yeah.
Can't hear you, Doug.
Can't hear you, Dawn.
Can't hear you.
Okay, the reason why I was trying to put my earphone on is because the guys need to blend. So let them blend real quick. Hold on one second.
Can't make this up. You can't make it up.
I think blending is very apt. Dawn presents a comprehensive PR strategy for brands small and large. I just wanted to interject.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. So you guys, I don't right now, since we've been open and definitely because of COVID. No, I don't hold food events inside the store. Pretty much all my public relations is me reaching out, calling journalists on the phone, tapping them on Twitter, engaging with them on Instagram, pretty much, or when I see them. Like Joe is a journalist. Joe will tell you, as soon as I knew he was a journalist, I was all in his face. Let me tell you what I do. Let me tell you what we are, because that's the only way for your brand. You can't be shy, okay? The only way for you to get your brand in all of these media outlets is for you to be confident and interested in making sure that journalists know who you are and who your business is.
Okay, fine. So I have a recommendation for you.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, for $15 a month, or if you buy the annual, you can create a Zoom Pro account, and it gives you up to 100 users per session. You can do as many sessions as you want. I'm assuming you have a website for your store?
Of course.
Okay, so what you can do is there are several places you can advertise your food events. In fact, I PM'd you a group on Facebook I run that's all about food lovers, so you can join that group and post. So what you can do is you can create an online event. You can create a Zoom session, create an online event for yourself, then publicize that. And I would not put the Zoom link in there because you may get people you don't know. What you do is you create an email address on your website, have the people who are interested, you give the event a title, what its description is, 2-line description. You have them email you if they're interested. And this way you're screening out potential people who just want to bother you. Then once you get the email address, you forward them the Zoom link for the session, and you have a Zoom, you can do right from your house or right from the store, you can do it. And because you have all the resources there, and then you can get as many people as you can get to the Zoom event, and then you can publicize your business from there, and you make each event a theme. And there are plenty of free places to advertise your event. One of the places of all places that you do it is called patch.com.
Oh, yes. I'm actually a Patch user, and I'm glad you brought that up. Because I'm actually a Patch user, and that is something all of you can use as well, especially when you want to tell your own story. We talked about that earlier. If you want the byline, you can use patch.com.
And the other thing is Nextdoor went to, you can use a citywide calendar for your food events, but Patch, if you use the right hashtags, Patch has almost 1 million followers in New York. And if you use the right hashtags, it goes straight to Google. Now you mentioned Twitter, okay? Facebook is more popular than Twitter, and the best way to get yourself known on Facebook, I'm a group admin, okay? As I always believe, use someone else's money to make money for yourself. Perfect example. If you go to the Atlantic Avenue train station or any other major train station in the New York City subway system, New York City Human Rights Commission has this huge marketing campaign that they're trying to help out communities in need. And they're using the hashtag OurCityNYC. So I borrow that hashtag on things. Our city, always use someone else's. For
I do. And so
if they want to spend $5 million, be my guest, spend $5 million. I'll piggyback off for your $5 million. Okay.
I definitely think what you're saying is absolutely true, and it make me think of another idea for all of you. So I didn't really talk about Facebook Lives and IG Lives, but what you're talking about with the Zoom Pro is similar to what we've done with IG Lives and Facebook Lives. And I would tell you that those PR strategies or antics work, because let me give you one in particular. Last year, LL Cool J, who I'm sure all of you know from NCIS, and also he's one of the biggest rappers from Queens. He was doing a IG Live with people because of the pandemic, because a lot of people were depressed because they were home alone. And he was doing something called the Cool Down Chronicles with LL Cool J. Well, last year, I had the absolute opportunity. He just chose me to speak to me on this IG Live. I can't tell you guys, the next 3 days, we could not keep up with the demand at the Nourish Spot. I mean, we had to turn off our our apps a couple of times in order to fulfill the orders. So that's another, what you just mentioned is another tactic for you guys to think about using is IG Lives. Actually invite.
What is IG Live?
It's Instagram,
Instagram.
Live and Facebook Live. Use those. You can invite up to 3 other people to be on the conversation, and then you invite your customer base to come in and you give them education, because that's important too. Educating your customers is also good PR.
And I would say that
Robert, let's open up this for one last question. Anybody with a question? or comment?
I hear a part 3 to Dawn's appearance. That's what I hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, Dawn, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much. And we definitely will invite you back.
Okay.
I hope that one thing I had in mind was that maybe we could pick a person here and you could do a quick analysis of their business and how they might use publicity tactics that you've talked about. For example, Ben Horowitz's business. How would he, what kind of angles could he use to approach the media, etc.? Not to pick on you, Ben, but just taking your name as an example. So I hope that
I'll take it. Thank you.
Like you'll take it. Okay.
Yes.
But Dawn, go ahead. You want to say something? Go ahead.
Well, I just want to tell Ben is funny, and I meant to say that I used to do employee benefits for Prudential. I actually used to interact with journalists about employee benefits. So I hope that you are reading like all the HR blogs and the trade newspapers. That's your group. Those are the people that you need to get in front of, okay? And then also you need to look at those days like, those months of observance, like April was Financial Literacy Month. So those types of months, use those to insert yourself with journalists.
Great.
Awesome.
Wonderful. I think that would be really a helpful kind of session. So if you are willing, I'll reach out to you. It's been wonderful. So thank you all for joining us again, and we'll see you next week. Dawn, one more time. It's been wonderful having you as our guest.
Dawn.
Thank you, Dawn. We'll see you all next week.
Robert,
Alex,
can you take a picture and send it to me? Can you take a picture?
Absolutely. Hold on. Let me just do this.
Ben, did you take a picture already?
Yeah. I mean, Alex always sends a recording. You can take a screenshot later.
I got it.
Thank you.
I rely on Ben for that.
I didn't get to it.
That's okay.
Dawn, you wanted me?
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much. Dawn,
Right.
we can't wait to have you back. Now that
Thank
we
you.
got you.
Everybody. Thanks, Don.
Have a great week.